What's up, Windwalkers, and welcome to my Mythic Vexie in the Geargrinder's Guide. Now, right off the bat, this boss is extremely similar to the heroic version, and I would even argue is easier than heroic Mugsy and Gallywix. So, for any of you progressing heroic at the moment, it's actually not a bad idea to step a toe into Mythic and get Vexie ticked off the list. Plus, the boss drops a two-hander you can upgrade all the way up to 679, which is pretty damn dope. So, in terms of gear, this is what I ran for this boss. Nothing too crazy here, but it's worth mentioning that as this is a pretty semi-AoE fight, it's worthwhile running a two-hander here. Otherwise, nothing else special gear-wise. Similarly to my other boss guides, I'm going to show you my damage breakdown at the start of the video to kind of give you a sort of idea of where all the damage comes from. And from the time of recording, this video was the rank 5 Vexie log. Finally, let's check out talents. This is going to look very similar to my Gallywix setup, and that's because it is. It's identical. Intermittent ad spawns means Emperor's Last Capacitor and Power of the Thunder King are great takes here. As I was using a two-hander, I took Transfer the Power, but if you haven't got your hands on one yet, then Dual Threat will do a great job for your double one-hander setup. Now, I have seen builds for this boss that don't go lightning at all, and just go straight down the middle. These are completely viable, however, you probably need two one-handers for these, and I would suggest lightning for the majority of Windwalker players, as in my mind, it's just got infinite value and you can't go wrong with it. Alright, preamble yapathon over. Let's check out what this boss is all about and how to get it done on a Windwalker. Straight away, it's worth mentioning that you play this entire fight in the bottom left-hand corner. This way you can get all of the bike spawns on top of your raid so you can nuke them down real quick. So, starting the boss, you pop absolutely everything and just do your single target opener. It's alright to pot here. You can also save your pot for the first intermission, but there's no real harm in potting now. Both work either way. So what you're trying to do here is getting as many stacks of Crackling Jade Lightning as possible. That way, the moment the ads spawn, you can chain lightning every single one of them and it does huge damage. That's kind of the name of the game here, is trying to stack up as much Crackling Jade Lightning for each ad spawn, so then you can nuke them down. So you can see, because we're stacked in the bottom left-hand corner, all the bikes are going to line up in a real nice spot, and so I get a really good Crackling Jade Lightning, and so does every other monk in the raid. So, the mythic mechanic here is that once you nuke down a bike, they spill oil. Oil spills drop these circles on the floor, and you can only soak one per phase. Each bike then requires you to stack 2 of these dropped oils in it before you can charge it into the boss, and that is pretty much the entire mythic mechanic of this fight. So you can see here that I got an oil, and then I hop into a bike and I charge it at the boss. You need to shoot 6 of these bikes into the boss to phase it, kind of similar to heroic and normal. So once I've charged the bike in, I can no longer soak oil for the rest of the go. So because I did the bike mechanic on the first set, I didn't get many Crackling Jade Lightning stacks set up for the next set. So instead of spending them at 7, which would have been a bit of a waste, I instead stored back up to 20, ready for the third set of ads that come in. At this point, you should be about to go into the intermission. The intermission should start at about 1 minute 30 into the fight if you manage to shoot all your bikes in on time. So the ad set that comes in now is kind of fake. And now you're into the intermission. The boss takes double damage, and you've got to go absolutely ham. So you want to send absolutely everything here, and there is an actual monk mechanic here that can be really useful, and that's paralysis. 2 massive ads coming to the boss, and I'm looking out for them. The Mistweaver uses paralysis on the first one, and I spot the second one, jump to it, paralysis it, and go back to the boss. This is pretty important because if these ads get into the boss, none of the smaller ads can be CC'd or interrupted, so paralysis is a really good way of dealing with this, and doing it on both intermissions is generally the play. So as well as sending everything, you want to try and get 20 stack Crackling Jade Lightnings here. You can see that I sent a 20 stack Crackling Jade Lightning directly into the boss, and that's just because boss damage is so important here. I know that you could pad a little bit on the ads, but getting that 100% damage jump on a 20 stack straight into the boss is probably more important than padding, let's be real. And with that, the first intermission is over. Genuinely, if you can do P1 and you can do the first intermission, you have this boss down. Nothing changes. After the second intermission, the boss repeats P1 the exact same way that it did before, and following that, it repeats the intermission the exact same way it did before. This is a super rinse and repeat fight that if you can just get the first part nailed, you've got this boss in the bag. So, as we're back in P1 again, we know the bikes are going to come in again, so the best thing to do here is try to get a 20 stack Crackling Jade Lightning and hold it until the bikes come in so you can get as much damage on them as possible. Literally the exact same as the start of the fight. now I can grab oil again because I'm in the second part of P1. You need to be careful here because oil circles can spawn on top of each other, and you can actually get unlucky and grab two at the same time and it will one-shot you, so positioning is really important here. Make sure that you're just stood inside of one circle. A lot of the time you won't actually get the oil slick because pretty much every other person in your raid is stood inside these circles, so it's kind of a free-for-all. You don't really have assignments here, it's just grab the circles, put them in the bikes, shoot the bikes into the boss. Now, I also send my cooldowns here as well early before we get into the second intermission, and this is just because it lines up. I could hold them for the intermission, but I think I get more value by using them now and then using them at the latter end of the second intermission. Now add spawn again, and I have a 12-stack Crackling Jade Lightning. I send it early because I get the oil slick mechanic, and I go stand on the other side of the boss. This is really important. You need to drop this behind the boss, otherwise if you try to send bikes into the boss, they cannot get to it, and you'll basically tank the encounter. There's also a fire mechanic that players can get to clear oil slicks, but from PTR and from all my raid testing on live, I don't think that melee can actually get it. I've never got it myself, I think it is a ranged mechanic. So I'm going absolutely ham on the boss here, and I'm looking for the target that I need to paralysis. The Mistweaver got the first one, and I spot the one behind me, so what I do is I roll towards it so it's as far away as possible, and I hit paralysis and then flying serpent kick back in. This time the oil slick was kind of useful because it got me there a little bit faster, both ways. And then I send cooldowns again during the intermission. You can see that this lines up pretty well. Even though that I cast it about halfway through the second intermission, I still get full value from all of my cooldowns because the intermission's quite a long time. So, it's pop everything and go absolutely ham. Sending as many Crackling Jade Lightning 20 stacks into the boss as possible and just smack this thing with AoE. This fight is generally easy. It's easier than Heroic Mugsy, it's easier than Heroic Gallywix. It's basically all about making sure you get the bikes into the boss, and then you get 2 intermissions, and then just pummel this sucker. Once the boss is about dead, you need to be aware that Vexie is going to pop out, and you still need to nuke Vexie down. Vexie doesn't have a lot of health at all, let's be real, but it's still worth mentioning that you want to try be nearby so you can get that last bit of damage in. Overall, I think this is a good first Mythic boss. The mechanics aren't too testing, it's very similar to Heroic, and it can be punishing at the same time. However, it's easy enough to learn and get some Mythic loot early on. Anyway, I've been Windwalker POV, and I hope this guide helped. Catch you in the next one.